Class on Photography Conversations. It's February 12th, 2013, and we're in my studio here in Edmonton, Alberta, where Mike Isaak, a local photographer, has joined us to talk about photography. I've been following Mike's social media sites, and he has shown us wonderful landscape photographs and recently beautiful panoramic shots of downtown Edmonton. He's also been the recipient of many photo competition awards. Hi Mike, and welcome to Conversations.
Thanks for having me, Terry.
Glad to have you. Well, let's begin by you telling us when and how you got started in photography.
Okay, about 7 or 8 years ago, I went on a missions trip with my dad to El Salvador, and just before the trip I had bought a little Canon point and shoot, and didn't really think much of photography per se as an art, but more just documenting the trip and, snapping some photos. And I guess upon coming home, I downloaded the pictures and saw I had a couple, kind of interesting shots. And I don't know, I started, didn't really do much at the time, but I was kind of slowly getting into it. I started looking online for stuff and I stumbled upon forums, camera forums, and that's kind of how I got more into it. I posted a few shots and I didn't get completely bashed, so that was a good sign. Some people said I had a little bit of potential, so eventually I hooked up with another person who was shooting a DSLR. That's how I kind of stepped into the DSLR world, and went shooting a bunch of times, and eventually decided to get a little D40X, I think it was, one of those ones.
Yeah.
And the first lens I had was a 1855, and the image quality wasn't that great, but I was able to get out, and out here in Alberta I love the mountains, so I was out in the mountains a lot shooting. Started just learning like that.
Mm-hmm. So as you've developed your craft, have you settled into a specific type of photography that you like to be involved in?
Yep, and that would be landscape photography and kind of astrophotography / aurora shots and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. What makes you feel good about taking landscape photographs?
I enjoy being outside a lot. Obviously, I grew up on a farm, so I was outside all my life, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And we had quite the open skies there as well. Not a lot of light pollution around, so you could see a lot of the stars. And I don't know, I just like the general feeling of being outside, and I enjoy hiking a lot, the mountains. I find it very relaxing for myself, being out there in nature. And I guess a specific example could be when I was at Abraham Lake on this last Friday, or Saturday actually, and there was just complete silence. All you could hear was the wind howling and maybe one animal or two making a sound, mm-hmm. and stuff like that. And also with hiking, I do a lot of hiking in the Rocky Mountains, and I definitely enjoy the thrill of hiking up to a certain point, and all the planning that goes up to it, and you finally get to the location or whatever, and you set up, and it's just the whole journey of getting there, and then
mm-hmm.
actually achieving the shot that you planned or that you didn't plan, actually.
Yeah, yeah. And that's interesting because with landscape photography and generally all kinds of photography, there's a certain amount of luck that's involved in being at the right place at the right time to get that perfect shot.
Yeah.
Are there things that you might do to help you increase those chances of getting that good photograph?
Definitely. If I know the area at all beforehand, I will. I'll scout it out, and you can see shots online or whatever of a certain place, and you can kind of see what other people have done, and I kind of try to. Not always, but I will try to get a certain unique perspective or a different angle or something. Mm-hmm. And of course, you always want to take the trophy shot that everyone else has shot too, right?
Yeah, that's
you
right.
Get a certain satisfaction of being able to accomplish that as well. If I don't know the area, I will spend a lot of time on Google Maps. The Photographer's Ephemeris, which I find is a very handy app for sunrise, sunset, moonrise, moonset times.
Yes.
And it tells you exactly when the astronomical twilight is for night shots. I also use Star Walk now a lot more because I've been trying to get into Milky Way shots.
Yes.
so it tells you exactly at what point in the sky the Milky Way will be at a certain time. And I just do a lot of research. If I don't know the area, I'll just hound the internet and find out as much as I can about a certain place, and then I try most of the time to, before I actually go shooting, well, I'll take a look around at the certain area and see the light of the land, how it's going to work. And I guess a more specific example could be when I was at Abraham Lake for sunset. I knew exactly where I was going to go. I knew where the sun was going to be because of the photographer's ephemeris, and I knew that the sun was going to shine right through a valley and hit the mountain peak right at sunset.
Yeah.
So, a lot of planning like that. Actually, one more thing I bring up is that I enjoy sometimes just driving out in the middle of nowhere, the back roads of Alberta, and sometimes you stumble upon those little gems like abandoned churches and houses, and I don't do a lot of shooting like that, but there is the odd barn or church or whatever that I'll shoot, or single tree or what have you.
Yeah. What I find interesting, just listening to you talk about all of that, is how you use technology to help your photography, and it just makes me think about the old photographers like Ansel Adams and photographers like that take these incredible landscape photographs where they didn't have technology. They depended on actually just going out there to determine the sunrises and the sunsets and the views that they wanted to get.
I assume they spend a lot more time in the field than I am capable of right now.
Yeah, I'm sure that there were days and days and days that they would have been out there.
In part, they still use technology, like as much technology as they could at the time. I know from Ansel Adams' point of view or perspective that he did a lot of darkroom processing, and what he originally shot wasn't always what the final product was.
True, that's true. I agree with that. Yeah. And talking about processing, there are two trains of thought about processing of images. There are those purists that feel that the image that you get on your camera is the final image. And then there are those that are comfortable with post-processing their images to alter that shot, to create something that's different than what was taken in the field. What side of the line do you fall on in that regard?
I don't necessarily fall on any line. I kind of take the best from both worlds and apply it to how I see fit at the time. Like, let's say, if I can get the shot in one shot in camera, maybe if I use a filter if I have to, I will. Or a single exposure, I will. If the light is really harsh, and sometimes I know with filters, if you're shooting right into the sun, you'll get a lot of glare, you'll get stuff like that, and I will then not use the filters, and I will bracket my shots. I prefer to do minimal editing where possible. Yeah. But I think right now a majority of my editing is coming from stitching together giant panoramas, which is, I don't know, I kind of stumbled upon panoramas, and now I've been focusing a lot of attention on shooting a panorama. Speaking of exposure blending or whatever, like, it's not really good to use filters if you have something poking above the horizon. So I'll use exposure blending in that case.
Right.
And yeah, you can get the light exactly how you want it. And with filters, you're going to be darkening that tree or whatever that's sticking above the horizon. That doesn't look natural at all either. I find if you shoot a certain way into the light as well, if the light's too harsh and you're stacking filters, you get a very purple-ish sky as well, and that's kind of unnatural. Yeah. But yeah, I think that I'm kind of more middle of the road. I take the best from both worlds and apply it to how I see fit. And if I know for myself, I have done some image manipulations where you pretty much take a shot of the moon at a different focal length and you incorporate it into the shot later to be a more realistic view. Yeah. But I find that if you are forward with what you're doing with your shots, people are more understanding and they don't question you. And if you're taking a shot and you up front say exactly what you did to it, right, that people are more understanding as well.
I think that's an important way of looking at it as far as using both worlds.
Yeah.
Because if you understand that there is the possibility that you're going to use that shot that you take with your camera,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to take the time to actually take the shot properly, so
Yeah.
you do have a good image to begin with.
Yeah.
And then you do have that option of using it or subtly modifying it
Mm-hmm.
to make it look more natural, depending
Yeah.
on some of the things that might have happened when you took the shot.
Yeah, and especially if you're shooting in RAW, I mean, it captures all the image detail and the colors and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to extract that information from the actual RAW file.
That's right.
And because if you open up a RAW file, it'll be pretty flat
That's right.
and boring, so you have to do a little bit of tweaking.
Yeah.
But I prefer not to go too overboard, I think.
Well, I'm of the same opinion. When I drag all that information out of a RAW file, I won't do too much to it. There are just a few things that you can do to actually get that photograph looking really nice, because that information is there.
Yeah, and there's some people that do a little bit of overkill, I think, when processing their shots, and I know that the big acronym is HDR or whatever, and HDR is, to me, high dynamic range.
Yeah.
So you get the most out of your image file, right?
Yeah, well, you're essentially trying to present to the viewer what you saw when
Exactly.
you took the shot.
Yeah.
And if you do that in that purest form,
Yeah.
you really are giving this beautiful view to those that are looking at your photographs that
Mhm.
remind you and show them what you did see.
Exactly.
And so just in the purest form, that's good. But there are those that take that a little bit too far, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, I think in that regard, there's very left and right people, like purists, and then there's I guess you could call it the more digital art, or
Mm-hmm. Their
You know,
photographs become artistic.
yes, very artistic.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that, actually, as long as you're not saying up front, this is one photo, that's all I did. Like,
Right.
I know one photo in particular I'm thinking of right now, and you can see clouds in front of behind the moon.
Yes.
And
Okay.
it's by a very popular photographer. I won't say his name, but I don't know if he was upfront about it or not. But I know there's been some controversy about that photo.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not right.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No.
Now, you've taken photographs here in Canada and other places like New Zealand, California, and Arizona. And I'm wondering if there's a memorable moment from your travels that you can share with us.
Definitely, it'd have to be hands down my Nugget Point lighthouse experience.
And where's Nugget Point?
That's New Zealand.
New Zealand?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's the very southeast part of it, I guess you could say, close to Dunedin, I believe. I might be wrong. I'll check.
That's correct, because I looked it up.
Is it? My memory's correct, then. That's good. Basically, I'll try to describe it in audio. I had to hike up a very, very narrow trail, and if you're looking west from the lighthouse, it's a very, very steep cliff on either sides. The path goes on the right side, and then right after the path, it's a drop to the ocean. So on the other side of the path is the cliff, and it goes up, I would say, probably about 100 meters or 328-ish feet off the ocean floor. So it's quite precarious, and
That's spectacular.
it was very, very windy the first day I went there, and that was at sunset. I climbed up there. I didn't get quite as high as I'd wanted to, but I took a few shots. Sunset really didn't do anything. Went back to sleep in the camper van. The next morning, I went back to the same location. Decided it was a little bit less windy, so I hiked up a little bit higher and secured myself between two bushes on either side of me. I had a rock behind me, so I had my camera bag was kind of tied down in between all that mess of stuff, and I had my camera there in front of me, and I patiently waited there for the sun to rise above the horizon. And when I was setting up, I could notice sea lions down below on the shore to my right, it would be. And as the sun started to come up, there was like a small but intense glow on the horizon. And I really didn't think much would happen from that, because there was a lot of cloud in the area.
Yeah.
And it was windy as well. Like, I thought it was going to be a dud again, and I was kind of disappointed. But then, after watching it, I watched the sun rise up, and then it kind of disappeared behind the clouds. Then, out of nowhere, sunbeams started dancing across the ocean from left to right, and it went on for about I would say, 30 to 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and all that whole time I was shooting a big panorama in a 2:5 aspect ratio, and I also took a little bit of video. The video quality is not very good because I'm not a videographer, but I would shoot photos instead. But actually, I have that print hanging above my couch, 2 feet by 5 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Another side note, I think, is anytime I shoot the aurora, it's always mesmerizing and amazing, and it gets me every time.
Yeah.
Or anything that involves a lot of preparation or hiking, a lot of work going into a shot, and then you get the reward of being in the right time, the right spot, I guess.
Well, and it's like anything. It could be to take the photograph. It could be anything that involves a hike.
Yeah.
Anything that involves planning and hard work.
Yeah.
And you gotta suffer to get to that point. There's nothing like that. It's the effort and the joy of surviving and being able to do it.
I actually think my
standing
wife
on the top of the mountain, you know.
Yeah, my wife Anna, I think she suffered the most on that Nugget Point sunrise because she was sleeping in the camper van and she didn't really know where I was going for this shot. And after I told her, she kind of freaked out and was, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
That's wonderful, and the effort was worth it because it's an incredible photograph. It's probably has to be one of your favorites.
It definitely is, yeah.
Yeah. Now, related to that, I understand that you've entered some photo competitions over the last few years, and you've been successful in getting some of your photos selected. Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
Tell us about that.
Well, I don't really enter too many per se, but I do enter once in a while. I prefer to enter the competitions that don't steal your rights to your photo and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know I won a runner-up award for an aurora shot in what's that magazine, the Canadian Outdoor Photographer Canada, that one. And I actually recently had a request, not really a contest win, but a request for one of my images of the Northern Lights to be featured in the American version of Outdoor Photographer.
Wonderful.
And I guess the biggest contest I won was the Epson International Pano Awards, which I got second place in the amateur category for a Northern Lights panorama shot, which I won some little trinkets from and stuff like that. Other photo contests, I won a couple small ones of the image of the floating boat I have, which is kind of like an abstract image. I don't know, I just do it for fun, and it kind of gets my images out there for people to see as well. It's a good way of promoting my photography as well, I find.
Now,
and you can get feedback as well. Sorry to cut you off, but often people, give constructive feedback or...
Well, feedback from people in the biz is better than feedback from your family.
For sure, because, they're a little more honest than your family.
Well, everything you do with your family is perfect, right?
True.
Yeah.
In the real world. Yeah.
Now, sort of following through with that, are you striving to do more with your photography other than just taking photos and sharing them?
Yeah. Slowly, I guess you could say, because I do have a full-time job. I'm not a full-time landscape shooter, so mostly right now it's a hobby. But I have been recently working on a new website, rebranding the one I had, which is not very complete, I guess you could say. I didn't have any offering for people for prints on there or anything like that. It was just my photos.
Right.
And now with this website, people are just able to go on there and click on a photo they like, pick a size. It's really simple, which I find is people on the internet have a shorter attention span.
Yeah.
So if they see something simple and they like it, they'll buy it.
Yeah. What's is your website up yet?
No, not yet. I'm hoping to have it launched on the 28th. There'll be a couple announcements before then regarding maybe some print giveaways or some little contests I might have or what have you. I have some ideas in my head right now, but I won't share them just yet.
Yeah. So that's February 28th, right?
February 28th, yeah. If all goes to plan, that's when it'll be launched.
What's the address?
The address will be www.mikeisaac.com. Real simple.
Pretty simple. Yeah. That's excellent. And what's that been like, putting together a website? I mean, I understand you've got somebody doing it for you, but
Yeah,
still you have to be involved, right?
Definitely. They put the foundations down for me, and they're a company out of the UK actually called Focal Folio.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also landscape shooters, so they understand what my needs are, and other landscape shooters as well. They've done a bunch of other photographers as well. Alex Nail is one of the main guys who runs the website, and Tony Fong as well. They have done Drew Hopper's website, Aaron Feinberg from Hawaii, guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand how they want a website to look and how it's presented to people.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I basically just uploaded a lot of photos to the site, did some minor tweaking. It's taken a while, but
yeah,
it's slowly getting there. But they've been really good and really helpful, and it's important to get someone professional to do a website,
right?
In my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can try to do one yourself, but this just saved me a lot of work, a lot of hard work, I should say.
Yeah. So you're feeling pretty happy with what's going to be showing up on the 28th.
Definitely, yeah. You'll be able to, like I said, you'll be able to buy prints on there. It'll be ever growing as well. I have some stuff in the works for different ways of showing your prints on the wall. Like right now, we'll have canvas and fine art paper mostly,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm looking into metal printing, greeting cards, calendars, stuff like that.
Yeah. Excellent. And aside from this webpage, are there other ways that you're promoting your work as far as, let's say, social media and that sort of thing?
I'm on a couple of social media pages, like you can find me on Google+, Facebook, DeviantArt. I'm not very active on there anymore. 500px, photo sharing sites like that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I should do more
Mm-hmm.
involvement on those kind of platforms,
Mm-hmm.
which I will be doing eventually. But right now, in the process, I have a portfolio that's going to be made. It's going to be pretty big, actually, like 3 feet wide when you open it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping to present it to a few local art galleries. I actually have a contact with Douglas Udell from the Doug Udell Gallery,
Mm-hmm.
and we actually met on a plane and started talking photography
Yeah.
when I was working up north, flying from Vancouver to Edmonton. He has a gallery there and in Edmonton as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had a few conversations, and we'll see. Once I get that printed, bring it to a bunch of local art galleries, and I eventually want to own my own gallery.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my plan anyways, because I can't store all the photos on my wall. I gotta find a place for it.
Well, that's pretty exciting, Mike, and it looks like you're moving on a really exciting path. I want to thank you for coming to my studio today to talk about what you're doing. It's been a pleasure talking with
Taking
you.
apart my brain.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Right on. I appreciate that, and I hope I actually came up with some insightful information for other people as well. And
Well, that's the idea of these interviews that I'm doing. I really want to not necessarily talk to the pros. I want to talk to the amateurs and the people that are just starting their journey, because they have a lot of information, because they're right in the thick of the learning process.
yeah, and we're willing to learn all the time, and it's a constant learning process
Exactly.
with everything.
Okay. Well, good luck on your journey.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You have been listening to Terry Lawson Photography Conversations, interviews with local photographers and those involved in the art scene. I hope you can join us for our next interview.